Hey. So before we get going into the video, I would just like to say thank you for all the support on the last video I made. I'd never gotten that much support for a video. I mean, I haven't been doing it for that long, but still it meant a lot, so I just want to say thank you. And hello to all my new subscribers, because I had none before the video and now I have around 13ish, so anyway, that was awkward. So today I'm going to be talking about what I read in February. I read 6 books last month in February, which, as you guys know, I read 12 books in the month before February. January, sorry, I'm bad at months. And I halved it this month, but I don't know why specifically. I think it's because of the books I read, and I'll kind of go in more depth when I talk about the books. I read pretty okay. It hasn't been my best reading month, honestly, but let's talk about it. So the first book I read this month was Sadie by Courtney Summers, and I really liked this book. This is not one of the reasons why this reading month wasn't the best. This is a really great book. If you don't know what this is about, it's about this girl named Sadie who's 19, 18, who her little sister was murdered, and she knows something that everyone doesn't, so she travels around trying to kind of almost solve her murder, figure out what happened, to basically get revenge on who did it. And it follows Sadie, but it also follows a perspective of a true crime podcast that is following Sadie around, trying to rescue Sadie because she kind of disappeared. So it's a really dark book, and there are trigger warnings. Make sure you check that out if you want to give it a try, but I think it was a really unique book. I had never read anything even similar to this before. The podcast format was really cool, and I've heard really good things about the audiobook because apparently it sounds like an actual podcast. And if you're looking for a YA kind of thriller almost book, then I really suggest this. The next book I read this month was one that definitely contributed to kind of the lesser amount of books that I read, and that is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. So this book, it's just hard because I love Six of Crows. Six of Crows is my all-time favorite book in Crooked Kingdom. Just that whole duology is my all-time favorite, one of my all-time favorites. It's really hard for me to say that I felt really disconnected from this book and all the characters. I've heard kind of that's the general consensus. Nobody really loved this book 100%. It was kind of, it was not just as good as some of the other books that the author has written. And I really agree with that. I loved Nina's part in this. I thought the storyline was good. I thought the characters were good, mostly. The Nikolai and Zoya parts just, for some reason, I couldn't connect myself to them. I don't know if it's because it's been a while since I read the Grisha trilogy. I felt like Nikolai wasn't that big of a part of it, so it was hard for me to remember much about him, and he was not one of my favorite. I mean, he's a good character, but he was never one of my favorites from that trilogy. I just hate that I didn't like it very much, and it's a pretty big book, as you can see, and it did take me a while to read, and I'm a really fast reader, but I can say that it did get better. This chunk was really good. So I have hope for the second and last one because it is a duology. And I'm also glad that it's just a duology because I want to move on from this and maybe get to Six of Crows 3. I know that's in the works maybe. She said something maybe she would years past. I'm still waiting for that. Also, I forgot to say that this book, I think you would know what this book is about. You can't read this book unless you've read the Six of Crows duology and the Grisha trilogy, so I don't know. I don't probably have to give that many details out about it, but it's about this king who has this secret, and it's about what they do to protect the secret and to do stuff about the secret. I don't know, it's kind of, I don't want to give any spoilers because if I say something about the plot points of this book, it spoils the other books, so read the other books and then you can read this. The next book is actually a book that I had in my January what I read, and that is House of Light by Mary Oliver, and I don't know why I included it in the January wrap-up. I think I finished reading it right before I filmed, and I was like, oh, just put it on the pile of books I read. I read this in February, not January. So if you want to know my thoughts about this, check out the other wrap-up, but I liked it, and I don't know why I included it in the last month, honestly. I don't know. It was a complete mistake. Oops. So that was all the standalone books that I read this month, and the rest of the books I read were these. The Legend trilogy. I would also say that it's because of these books that I kind of had a slow reading month. As you can see, they're not that long, but they took me a long time to read. I did enjoy these books. I do have a few things that I'm not sure about. It's not like one of my favorite series, but I'm just gonna say what they're about real quick. So this is about a dystopian world that America has been divided into two different countries that are kind of at war with each other. And it follows Day, who is a kind of rebel in the whole world, in the Republic. He's fighting for the people instead of like the controlling government, and June, who is part of the controlling government, and it's kind of about that dynamic, and yeah. That's about the general thing. It's kind of about their adventures trying to work together, kind of. It's pretty interesting. So in general, I'd say these books are pretty good. I did read all three of them, but I don't know if that's more about like my need to finish series and books, which I don't know why I have to, but if I start a book, I have to finish it, and if I start a series, I have to finish it. But I don't know, something about these books just like wasn't for me. I'm going to be reading the ones that come out in the future just because like I'm like into it now, you know, I've read all three. Something about the characters, like interactions, I just couldn't connect with, and these weren't super memorable for me. They're written really well. Like I really like Marie Lu's writing style, so I'm definitely gonna be reading like Warcross too. I have that, so I do want to read that. I just wasn't finding myself really loving the characters, and some of the plot points felt kind of unnecessary a lot of the times, and I felt like a lot of the things that could be resolved if the people just communicated, and that's like one of my, like, I don't know, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, just talk to each other, you could solve all of this. I do like how the series ended though. I know some people are like, oh, I don't like how the series ended, but I do, for the most part, like how it ended. There are a few things I thought were unnecessary, but I think generally it ended well. I really like the dynamic of like brothers. I thought that was nice. These books, it's not really something that made me enjoy these books less, but I do have something I want to get your guys' opinion on. So I'm gonna hold up Champion. And until I take this down, it's like a really mild spoiler. Like, I wouldn't even consider it a spoiler, but if you're really not wanting to get spoiled for this, wait until I take Champion down and I pick, like, Legend up again. I don't know. So, does anyone get kind of weirded out by, like, the age gaps between like love interests? So I just have a few examples. The minor example is Tess and Day, because Tess was 13 and Day was 15, which I think is a pretty big age gap considering how much growing you do between 13 and 15. I know they weren't ever really a couple, but like it seemed to be hinting at that sometimes, and I felt a little weird about that. I also felt really weird about Andon being like a big love interest for June when June is 15 and Andon is 21 at this point. He was 20 originally, then he had a birthday. So he's 21. A 21 and a 15-year-old, that's like a big age gap. I don't know, I felt weird about it. And I also felt weird about how in the first book, Thomas was an option for June, like hypothetically. But Thomas grew up with June's brother, who was 27, so he had to be around 27, and a 15 and 27-year-old, that's almost double. So I just felt really weird about that. I don't know. Anyway, okay, the spoilers are done, even though they weren't really spoilers. I generally enjoyed these books. I think it's like a 3-star series throughout, and I can completely understand why this would be someone's like favorite series ever. I can see totally the appeal of that, and I liked it, but I didn't like super love it. So okay, so those are all the books I read this month. I can kind of, I've seen some people like I didn't do this last month, but some people give their like TBR of the next month, and I'm not really 100% sure what I'm going to be reading. I've already read a book, but I don't want to say that yet. Well, I can say it was this one, but I'm not going to give my thoughts about it until the next month wrap up. Actually, I was like half into that, and then March happened, so I'm going to include it in the March ones because I finished it in March. I'm actually planning on reading the Foxhole Court trilogy. I usually read like a series a month along with a few standalone books. So I'm hoping to read the Foxhole Court trilogy in March. And let me know in the comments what books you read in February, because I'm interested to know. And let me know of any of your opinions on any of the books I mentioned. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.